This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to do a smackdown between the Samsung Galaxy Note 3, the latest greatest phablet from Samsung, and the LG G2. Definitely LG's best smartphone yet, not too small either with a 5.2-inch display. We're going to look at them now. So here we have two top Android phones for fall of 2013. One made by LG, one made by Samsung, both out of Korea, both big screens, both a lot going for them, and we're going to compare them now. First and foremost, I think for a lot of you, this is important, the size difference. We're talking 5.7-inch display in all of its glory versus 5.2-inch, and that makes a big difference in the form factor. If you take a look right here, if I can get these guys to actually, slippery as they are, line up on each other, you can see there's a significant difference in size. We're talking phablet here, something that is pretty hard to use one-handed, even if you have giant hands, and a smartphone that's the same size as the Samsung Galaxy S4 and the HTC One, which is to say, it's a pretty large phone, but it's not out of the norm nowadays for flagship Android phones. Now, this can be either awesome to you or not so cool. If you're already feeling like today's phones are pushing what you can fit in your pocket or what's comfortable in your hand, particularly if you do still try to use one of these with one hand, good luck to you for that. Well, obviously the LG G2 is better for those of you who prefer something more compact, but still want some of that really big screen goodness. And for those of you who think, gosh, I just can't get a big enough screen, well, the Note 3 is really about as good as it gets because, yeah, it's a big device, but honestly, it's more compact than most other big screen devices on the market, so it's still kind of manageable. I don't think it looks absurd if somebody holds it to their face. Nobody ever stares at me when I do, so there it is. Do you want the huge screen or do you want the more pocketable experience? Next most important thing is price. The LG G2, it's going to vary depending on carrier, but generally speaking, contract pricing is $199. That's pretty much set in stone unless you're a T-Mobile customer. We have payment plans instead. And the retail is around $575. Our Note 3 here, and both of these have 32 gigs of storage, by the way, so we have storage parity. Note 3 sells for $299 on contract. Its Sprint would be $350. T-Mobile, again, payment plans there, and it is around $725 to $750 off contract. So $100 difference in contract price, around $150 off contract. So, you know, money is important to a lot of folks, and that can be a deciding factor right there. And some of you may just be wondering, wow, I really like the Note 3. Is it worth that extra money? So keep watching and find out. First off, both of these have 1080p displays. So you look at 1920 by 1080 pixels. That's about as good as it gets on a smartphone these days. And they have lovely looking displays. Our Note 3 has a Super AMOLED display. Typically that is what Samsung uses, and it's improved in terms of colors, in terms of whites that actually can look white, at least when you've got the brightness turned up pretty high. It's good. Our LG G2, however, has an IPS display, which arguably is generally the best display in terms of viewing angles and also in terms of outdoor viewability. Now, Samsung did set up a super auto bright outdoor mode if you're running an auto brightness. If you go out in sun, it'll kick it up some, but it's still not as bright as our LG or as easy to see outdoors. So for those of you who are outside in the sun a lot, lucky you, the LG G2 might be the better pick. Now, still for overall screen size, it's really still hard to beat the Note 3. It's more immersive, 5.7 inches. It's noticeably bigger. If you're watching movies, if you're reading ebooks, looking at photos, it's an unbeatable experience. Again, if you can stomach the price and the size. Now, both of these feature a whole bunch of plastics, you know that, but one thing that Samsung's done with the Note 3 is they've hidden their plastics under design in a nice way. This has a faux leather back on it with little fake leather stitching here. It's really all just plastic, but it gives it a more grippy look and kind of a more stylish, classy look, particularly the black one, I think, which is even more grippy and looks a little bit more convincingly like leather. It's nice. LG goes the old Samsung route, which is to say the ultra-glossy plastic on the back that just loves fingerprints. Shines like this, you can see, and it's slippery. Now, you can get the white one. It's a little bit more subtle. It won't show fingerprints quite as much, but it's slippery. And while we're looking at the back of the phones, the buttons are on the back on the LG G2. Now, that's something you probably, well, three camps there. Some people really actually like that because when you're holding the phone, your finger does naturally fall to these controls, and this AT&T version is very tactile. Only the Verizon version has slightly different buttons that are not quite as tactile or easy to locate and operate. So some people actually love that a lot, some people hate it, and there's a lot of people who say, I could care less. With your Samsung Galaxy, you're getting normal buttons on the side, just like every other Galaxy phone. Power button one side, volume rocker on the other side. Nothing unusual there. Another thing about Galaxy phones is the back is removable. You can pop this back off, and of course you have access to the 3200 milliamp battery that's inside, your micro SIM card slot, and a micro SD-XC card slot. Simple as just ripping it off, again like all Samsung phones. You take it off and there's your stuff. Now, the LG G2 has a sealed back. Now, yes, if you really try hard, you can pry this back off on it, but it's not really meant to be taken off. That means the 3000 milliamp battery is sealed inside, and yes, it's almost the same capacity as the Note 3. And that's unusual for a phone that's not a phablet to have that high capacity of battery. You have your micro SIM door right here. You use a paper clip or the pokey tool, and you can take out your micro SIM card, and there is no expandable storage, no micro SD card slot. So for those of you who need a lot of media, particularly usually videos, it's going to take up a whole lot of space, or you have absolutely huge music library, obviously the Note 3 is going to have its appeal because it has 32 gigs of storage, just like this guy, but you can also use a micro SD card slot and put your media on that. Both of these phones obviously run Android. They run Jelly Bean. We have 4.3 on our Note 3, and we have 4.2.2 on the LG G2. Now, hopefully we'll see updates, the KitKat, goodness knows, at 4.4 for both of these. And LG used to have a bad reputation for not doing well with OS upgrades, but now that they're in cozy with Google and they've been making Nexus phones, we're hoping things will improve. In terms of UI, they both customize the UI heavily. You could say that LG is Samsung influenced in some cases. LG actually came up with a few things first, but anyway, same transparent launcher here, so you get to see your desktop pattern. Both of these phones extremely fast, both running on the same Qualcomm Snapdragon 800 quad-core CPU, 2.3 gigahertz nominally on the Note 3, 2.26 gigahertz on our LG G2. Given the issue with Samsung cheating a little bit on benchmarks to get about a 10% improvement on all major benchmarks, I'm not going to quote the numbers, but let's say that the Note 3 typically is about 10% faster on those synthetic benchmarks, but that's because they tweak some things to enable all cores all the time and raise some thermal ceilings. You're looking at pretty much the same thing inside here, folks. And other than the software customizations that may or may not bog down the phone, same stuff. 2 gigs of RAM on the LG G2, 3 gigs on the Note 3. You need more RAM on the Note 3 because it has a whole lot of custom software on it and stuff designed particularly for the pen that we'll get into, which is the other really important feature that sets these two phones apart. Both of these have Wi-Fi 802.11ac, Bluetooth 4.0, NFC, and a GPS with a GLONASS. 2 megapixel camera on the Note 3, 2.1 megapixel on the LG G2, both excellent for video chat. Both have 13 megapixel rear cameras with LED flashes. We'll get into that more in a minute, though. So for software customization, again, they both have a fairly, shall we say, heavy-handed approach, but LG has tried not to change the UI too much in terms of the way the icons look and feel, although you can choose from a bunch of different icons now and set the appearances you like. They do multitasking up here. We have our applications that we can run like little widgets. I can just tap that, and they're floating little widgets over here, and you can move these around. You can have two running at once if you want. You can set transparency. Our Note 3 has this little slide out multitask bar right here, and you can drag something like, let's say, drag something like Maps right here, and then we've got Maps, and it's saying welcome to Maps, and I can drag Gallery over here, and I can resize these two windows. So two different ways of handling multitasking. I would say that honestly the Note 3 is the more usable one for me. I like the resizable multi-windows over here. It's pretty easy to relate to and understand this. The floating widgets are kind of handy if you need the calculator, a little note thing for a minute, but it's not quite as productivity-inducing as Samsung's way of handling multitasking. Both of these have software note-taking apps, obviously, but here's the important thing about the Note 3. It's the S Pen, like all Samsung Note products, and the S Pen is a Wacom digital pen. That means it has pressure sensitivity. It's much more accurate. It's not fat like a capacitive stylus. It's much easier to use. So, big point here. Are you somebody who takes notes or likes to draw? Are you a digital artist? You're going to like the Note 3. It's going to be worth spending extra money for this feature. You won't find this on other smartphones. If you're one of those people who says, I just want a pretty big screen phone and I don't care about the pen, well, then still either of these could obviously work for you. Both of these phones customize the settings screen heavily into tabbed interfaces you can see here. Just your choice of whether you like white on background here and black background there. That's not really too terribly important. And you can see we have smart video, smart screen. A lot of the same features here. Both of these phones can keep an eye on you using the front camera, not turn off the screen if you're looking at the phone. They can do things like pause video if you look away. If you have video playing, they have motion sensors that can do various things like answer the phone if you pick it up and put it to your head, or make a call with Samsung if you put it up to your head after you have some contact up on your screen. Both of these have voice control. In either case, I prefer Google's voice control over the manufacturer's own voice control. One thing that I like with the LG G2 is that if you turn it off and tap it on the screen, like some Nokia phones, what happens is it wakes up. So if it's sitting on your desk, you really don't want to wake up the device, slide the unlock thing. You can just tap it to wake it up. Give it a little double tap. They call it that knock to wake feature. And there it is. Now, it would have woken up to the lock screen, but the timer hadn't happened yet. With the Samsung, and I have this feature turned on, and probably it's not going to work right now because bright environments stymie a little bit, but it can use the front camera. And if you wave your hand over it like a swami, it can make the screen wake up, and it'll show you notifications, incoming messages, missed calls. But it's a little bit hit or miss, and I really do feel a little silly because I'm going woo over it with my hand on top of the desk. I'd really much prefer I could just double tap on the screen to wake it up. Both of these have very capable 13 megapixel rear cameras with LED flashes, backside illuminated sensors. They can do HDR. They have a whole lot of photo modes. And here we're looking at the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 first. Pretty intuitive camera UI. You can watch our video review and read our written review to learn more about those. One thing that this has going for it is that it can shoot 4K video. I know that excites some of you. Now, we don't have a lot of folks probably with 4K TVs just yet because they're still very expensive, and close to 4K, not even laptops are just starting to hit the market right now. So how much use can you make of that now? I don't know, but in a couple of years maybe. But then again, in 2 years, you're probably going to be moving on to the Note 4 or 5, or who knows by then, yeah? Anyway, you can do it. The drawback, though, is when you're shooting 4K video, you have to disable image stabilization. This has digital image stabilization, not optical. Optical is nice. That's where the lens is essentially actually cushioned on the back. So when you move, it's kind of floating and it stops it from looking all jumpy. So when you shoot 4K video with this, you got to really stand still or be sitting. Your subjects can be moving, but you cannot because, boy, is it jittery and jumpy. In terms of the speed and image quality, these are both very fast phones. We have burst mode right there. Pretty quick processing because we have a fast CPU, and if we take a look at our LG. Now with the LG, if you want to shoot burst mode, you actually have to choose burst mode. You can see that's right there. A whole lot of modes again, just like the Samsung. They can both do panorama. They both do nice macro shots, and we'll test that out. Burst mode right there again. So you get the idea. Fast shooting. Both of these have very fast CPUs. Now, this pulls ahead because it's optical image stabilization. You don't find that much. Some of the higher-end Nokia Lumia phones have that, for example. Really makes for nice, stable video in the case that you're actually moving some, and most of us are not perfectly still, are we? So I really like that a lot. I'll also say that the image processing in this LG is amazing. Really good job of sharpening up things without over-sharpening. It handles contrast situations a bit better than Samsung Galaxy products do, where especially on bright sunlit days, you sometimes get overexposed light areas, that kind of thing. Now, they're both really, really fine cameras, but the LG G2 for me is one of my favorite camera phones ever, unless you're getting into something really high-end camera-wise, like the Nokia Lumia 1020. Similar dialers here, same access to your call logs, your contacts, that kind of thing. Both of these are excellent voice phones, excellent voice quality on these. They both play nicely with Bluetooth. They both have similar data speeds. These are both AT&T models on AT&T's LTE network in Dallas, and we average 18 megabit per second down and 12 megabit per second up, which is really rocking good, so on par there. Now, while we're talking about displays, once again, let's point out this is a 5.2-inch display. So this is already a little bit bigger than other nominally 4.7 to 5-inch smartphones on the market, like the HTC One, the Galaxy S4, so on. But we have software buttons at the bottom. Now the nice part is you can see these easily no matter what. As you can see with our Note, pretty much those buttons are invisible. You just memorize where they are because until you tap them to turn the backlighting on, you're not going to be able to see them. But the drawback is that they do use up some of your screen real estate. So 5.2 inches, you could say functionally maybe more like 5 inches once you've used up that little strip over here. With our Note, we have all 5.7 inches for whatever we're doing, be it a game or a movie or anything else. It's all yours. As is currently the rage, both of these have IR remotes, consumer IR blasters, so you can use this to control your TV, your DVD player, your Blu-ray player, in some cases your air conditioner. Go figure there. So on the LG, this is the UI. It's very remote-centric. It's not very content-centric. And you can see we have tabs here to switch between our Blu-ray, our cable box, our TV, like that. Samsung, we have a fairly simple UI there, and there's a little tab that you pull up here if you want to switch to a different remote. And when we're done with all that, we can get back to the Samsung Watch On, which is powered by Appeal. And here's our content discovery screen. It hasn't really floated my boat so much. I'm not that much of an Appeal person, but I know some of you may be. So anyway, both of these will control your TV. So how about video playback? Both of these are more than capable of playing back anything up to really 4K resolution should you wish to do so. And obviously the bigger screen is going to be a little bit more enjoyable probably for most folks if you don't mind carrying around the bigger device. You can see a slightly different color bias here where the Samsung is cool tone by default, and we have it on standard mode right now. You do have color profiles you can choose on the Samsung. Now how about gaming? These are both accelerometer based game series with Riptide on each of these. Now, I won't be able to move both of them for you, but you can see the size of the screen and what they look like and get the idea of which one is going to be a little bit more immersive. Again, it's going to be the bigger screen one. One of us is going to crash because I'm only using my hand on one. But you get the idea. You're going to get extremely awesome performance from both of these. Adreno 330 graphics, quad-core CPU. Lovely large screens on each. One thing, notice when I was talking about the software buttons, they stay here as a persistent thing, so they do use up a little bit of your screen real estate on the LG G2. How about battery life? Both of these are Energizer bunnies as smartphones go, which might not say much because smartphones are really not long-lived devices these days, but they both have very large batteries. 3,000 milliamps, again, inside the LG G2 sealed inside. 3,200 milliamp in the Note 3, which is removable. A little bit bigger on the Note 3, but it also has to power a much bigger LCD, and it's also got the pen-aware application, so there are some power-saving features there. You can have it not monitor and look for the pen unless you pulled the pen out of the silo, that kind of thing. Anyway, LG G2 runs about 2 days on a charge with moderate use for me. My Note 3 is running about a day and a half or so. Now, it's going to depend on what you're using it for, and if you play a lot of games, if you play a lot of video, both of those are going to run a shorter amount of time, and they're both longer than average, where most smartphones last about a day with moderate use. So either way, you're getting better than average battery life. So that's the Samsung Galaxy Note 3 versus the LG G2. Both are available now on all major U.S. carriers, and no matter which way you go, these are both really awesome phones. Two of my favorites. Clearly, as I said, what's going to come down to is what size phone do you want? This is still a lot bigger than Note 3 right here. And do you need things like the removable battery, the micro SD card slot, and how much money do you have to spend because the Note 3 is also going to cost you more? I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to read our reviews of each of these on mobiletechreview.com, watch our video reviews on YouTube, and hit that like button.